Hello everyone, my name is Aubrey Nowicki and I'm the proud founder and board director for the Student Event Planners Association. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. We're going to get started in just 5 minutes. In the meantime, on the event wall, if you guys have any questions throughout the duration of this webinar, feel free to post them on that wall. Also, if you are an SCPA member, feel free to introduce yourself. So if you're part of a chapter, include your chapter name, and if you happen to be a chapter officer, what your title is. If you are not part of SCPA, we welcome you. Thank you so much for joining today, and feel free to introduce yourself as well. You can definitely include your city and state and how you found out about SCPA. All right, as mentioned, we'll get started in just 5 minutes. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel for future viewing. Feel free to share it with any of your friends, associates, anyone who may be interested in the topic that we're going to be discussing today. We'll be introducing our guest speaker in just 5 minutes. All right, I see quite a few names I do not recognize, so welcome to the call, everyone. And a couple names I cannot pronounce, but Marilyn, Shannon, Laura, welcome to the call. If you're just joining the call, welcome everyone. We are going to get started at just 5 after. In the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself on the event wall. This will also be the same wall that you'll post any questions that you have throughout the duration of the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end with our guest speaker for this evening. So any questions you have, feel free to post there. And we're going to get started at just 5 after. Once again, this webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel for you guys to view in the future and to share with your friends and associates. Thank you, Sherry, for posting on the wall. Nice to have you. If you're a member of SCPA, feel free to include your chapter, and if you're holding any leadership positions with SCPA, we'd love to see you guys mention that as well. And if you're not a member of SCPA, welcome, welcome, welcome to the call. We'd love to also find out where you guys are from and how you found out about SCPA, so feel free to post that to the wall as well. Super sweet. All right, ladies and gents, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. This is on special events, and we're going to be diving into destination weddings in addition to special events with a phenomenal guest speaker. Now, I don't want to be rude to our other speakers, but I will say that we definitely saved best for last for you guys for this How to Find Your Niche series. Our guest speaker is absolutely phenomenal. She's got so much life, so much spirit, so much spunk. I know that you guys will relate to her on so many different levels. She has a lot of nuggets of wisdom to share, is super inspirational, and she is with Sapphire Events out of New Orleans. Her name is Valerie Gernhauser, excuse me, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce her really quickly. has one of the most unique bios I have ever read, and I think you guys will also find it very enjoyable. So a little bit more about Valerie. She's calm, cool, and collected is her mantra. Valerie is a natural-born leader, I agree with that takes pride in moving people, creating memorable milestones, and maintaining poise under pressure, which is essential in event planning. Valerie is a pug-loving Gulf Coast native who moved to New Orleans the month before Hurricane Katrina, and in the aftermath of the storm, decided to call it home. After 4 years in New Haven as an undergrad at Yale, she returned to her southern roots to attend law school at Tulane. In those hollowed halls, she met a dashing young Jesuit grad and married him on one of the rainiest days in New Orleans history. It's on record. Her wedding day jump-started a career path that has allowed her to combine her passion for design and creativity with her aptitude for organization and time management. She likes getting lost in anthropology, spontaneous road trips, mixing metals and prints, squeezing her babies, and getting her hands dirty in flower buckets or two. She considers herself very fortunate to bear witness to unfettered, intrepid, voracious love stories on Saturdays. She's living the life she's imagined. My favorite wedding day moment, the father-daughter dance gets me every time, which I agree with her. She says, "I can't help but tear up. It reminds me of the feelings I had when I danced with my dad, and I think of my husband dancing with each of our girls at their wedding one day." Definitely an amazing, amazing bio, an incredible woman, leader, just entrepreneur. We are so excited to have you on this call to share with us today. So thank you so much, Valerie, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited and wonderful to be a part of SCPA and everything you guys have going.
Thank you so much. So without further ado, I'm going to leave the floor to you. I'm going to drop out for a second, but again, I'll be watching the event wall. So throughout the duration of this webinar, if you guys have any questions, I'll be reading those as well as at the end of this webinar as we wrap up. So thank you, Valerie.
Okay, so first of all, welcome. Thank you for sharing your evening with me, everyone. So a little bit about where I got my start, which sort of came about in my bio a little bit that you just read. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Louisiana. I graduated law school in 2009 after the major credit crisis of '08. And I also got married to my husband, who I met in law school that same year. 6 weeks before our wedding, I got laid off from my firm job. And when we returned from our honeymoon, my husband got laid off from his job. So we were sitting there, newly married, newly graduated with lots of student loan debt, wondering what we were going to do with our lives. And we decided to start our own law firm because we went to law school to learn how to do this. Why not? We had the tools available to us. My husband's from New Orleans and I am not, so it made sense for him to try and build a client base through connections and family members that he already knew, and I was going to find a steady stream of income, a 2-week paycheck, doing anything I could find at the time, and jobs were really hard to come by at that year. So I applied to every job on Craigslist. I was way overqualified for, but just to find anything I could to contribute to my family. And I came up empty. So I had hired a day of coordinator for my own wedding. And I knew a lot about weddings, and I wrote her in desperation, and I said, I will sweep your floors for a paycheck. I will do anything. Please let me know if you have any openings. I'm game. And so she wrote me back and said that she had a very busy spring and she would love the help. So I joined her and started working weddings as a coordinator, and I learned that through weddings I had a very good skill set that could be applied to this industry. I was very creative, and one thing that the law did not provide for me was enough of an outlet to exercise my creativity. So I loved that weddings allowed me that opportunity. I love time management. I'm really good at it. I'm super organized, and I also had a lot of knowledge about contracts and negotiations and a lot of the skills that I had learned in law school and in my education throughout my life that also could be applied to weddings. And just in general, being able to communicate effectively to people. Most of my client base is destination to New Orleans, so I don't get the opportunity to meet them in person, maybe once or twice before their actual wedding week. So everything that I'm relying on to communicate with my clients is over the phone or over the email. So I have to be a very effective communicator. All of these things came to a head in the wedding world for me. So I really liked what I was doing. And then the opportunity came for me. My husband was doing great with his side of the practice. And I decided to leave the wedding world and sort of pursue the law, which is what I had educated myself in. And I still didn't find any work. And I became pregnant, and I was 9 months pregnant and virtually unemployed still. And I was lying awake 2 in the morning as the baby's rolling around in my belly and trying to figure out what am I going to do with myself, because I'm an overachiever by nature, and being unemployed really doesn't lend itself to the overachieving lifestyle. So I sat and wondered how I would contribute to my family because I had a new mouth to feed whose birthday was imminent. I decided that I would start my own wedding planning company. I would call it Sapphire Events. I'm a September baby, and that stone is very precious to me. And I set out to be the best wedding planner in New Orleans. And I was so excited. I had all figured out, and I woke my husband up next to me. I said, wake up, I figured it out. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a wedding planner. I'm going to call it Sapphire Events. I'm going to be the best in New Orleans. What do you think? And my sweet husband said to me, you are so sweet, but you're very hormonal. Please go back to sleep. I need my rest. And that was that. The next day, I couldn't let this idea get away from me. So I called a couple of friends that I had made in the industry, a florist friend of mine, a photographer friend of mine. I said, let me lay this on you. Tell me what you think. Am I really crazy? Is there a need for this? I told them my idea, and they said, absolutely. New Orleans needs you. We need a planner that's organized, that knows how to serve clients well, that's creative, that has that drive, and you've got it. But you're about to have a baby in 3 weeks, so we need to get you photos to put on your website. So we put together a photo shoot in 10 days from concept to execution, pulled together all the details, shot it. It helped me really break into the market and really understand what I was doing on my own. And that was a eye-opening experience for me. So with the photo shoot, we took the images, I created my website on my own. Every night, every day, I was sitting on my sofa working tirelessly on my new business, drawing up all of my contracts and everything. I had the baby, and at that point, I just waited for the phone to ring, for emails to come in, and nobody was emailing or calling. And I was really nervous. It sounded like crickets just sort of chirping in the field, just waiting for somebody to come around. But eventually somebody did. It was about 2 to 3 months in, and I got an email from a bride in Houston who was coming to New Orleans for her wedding. And she and I interviewed each other, and I gave her my pricing, which I had intentionally set pretty high for the time back then, as to what I thought that I could get away with. And she said, "Oh, I really want to work with you, but my budget that's beyond my budget. Here's what I'm working with." And like the words hadn't even left her mouth, and I said, "I'll take it," because I really wanted anything to be under my belt at that time, just to get the experience. So I worked with her, and then a few weeks later, another bride called me and emailed the same thing, and I raised my pricing a little bit more. I had a couple more brides that booked me, and then I raised my pricing a little bit higher, and then the business really started to get going. People started to hear about me. My marketing was really working. I was working very hard to get my name out there to the right places, meaning vendors and venues that I felt were aligned with my brand and my mission to do right by New Orleans weddings. And the rest is history. It just kept growing and changing over time, and that was in 2011. So this fall, this September, I will be 4 years old as a company. and I have 25 events this year, roughly. My first year in business, I had 12. My second year in business, I had 47 or 49, something insane. And then last year, I had something a little more reasonable, around 33 to 35. I can't remember. And now I'm in a sweet spot. I have 2 event producers that work for me full time. I have a part-time administrative assistant, and then I have a marketing and social media manager who works remotely. She's actually our college intern turned marketing strategist, and she lives in another city and has a full-time job and works for Sapphire events when she can, and she's excellent at what she does. I'm also hiring an intern for the summer, and I'm always looking to expand for the right people, the right members of the team that can really add something special that we have going for us. So that's a little bit about how we got started. So when I was telling you about how we grew, the starting point for my business is very scary because I started literally from nothing. I have operated my business. I'm an open book too, so I will tell you a lot, and any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer, no matter how invasive you might think they are. I'm an open book. So I started my business from nothing. I run a cash-only business. I don't go into debt for anything. I'm very, very judicious in the expenses that I do make, but at the same time, I'm also willing to take risks. I think risk-taking is a big part of being a business owner, and that is how you set yourself apart from the rest, I think. I've done things that at the time were sort of against the grain of what the market was doing. When I first got started in the wedding business, advertising in local print magazines is what everyone was doing, and it's very expensive to do, and it's very hard to track the return on investment with something like a magazine that doesn't have clickback data and metadata that you can analyze on Google Analytics, and how many conversions those are really actually making for you. So I went against the grain and stopped advertising with my local magazines. And at the time, my friends and colleagues were saying, that's a little bit crazy. Why would you do that? Because everybody does it. Your competition does it. And I decided to take a chance and do something different. I have always made a point to put out into the universe what I want to come back to me. And in doing so, what that means for me is the very way I got started, which is photo shoots. So from a practical standpoint, brides, as they come and sit down with me and talk to me about the things that they want to do for their event and things that they want to see and have their guests experience, they're very literal in their interpretation of what they've seen done before. And the biggest challenge as an event planner or an event designer and in a creative field in general is to push yourself and your clients to go beyond what has already been done before, because you don't just want to replicate somebody else's work. So I believe that in order to tap into that and show my brides something new and different, and for it to still be my own, is to put it out there and show them something I've come up with on my own. Get it photographed, get it published, which is my #1 rule of marketing right now, is to get published online, and show the world, especially with Pinterest and the viral social media, getting things out there and ideas that people can really latch onto, and then make their own in their own way. So that's one of the biggest things that I've done. I feel like my friends in the business have been able to sort of take on their own path as well and be freed to think of other ideas and other ways to market and not just go with the status quo. the way that brides and clients in general are buying services and investing in their big day is so different than it was even when I got started in 2011, but for sure when I got started as a bride myself in 2008, brides and clients are being very judicious in the way that they're finding and researching their vendors and things. So I've stayed on top of that and stayed on top of my research into the millennial generation, which does things a lot differently than the Gen Xers and Gen Yers. I am myself a millennial. I was born in 1982, millennials, which are born between 1979 and 2000. And I'm also fascinated by generational studies. So learning how millennials have been educated in school, in pods, with community involvement in projects and their grades and things, it translates to the wedding world in such a way that brides are planning by committee. They're not just interviewing me alone. They have their mom, their dad, their fiance's parents, and I'm meeting with 6 people before I've even been booked, just to talk about ideas and get to know them, and then they go and make a decision as a committee and bat around the pros and cons of things. And that's a true millennial characteristic. So understanding that about yourselves, finding that you're millennials, finding out what it is in the mind of your client that is helping them make decisions, whether that be the way that you're pitching them on a sales basis, how they're finding you through marketing avenues, whatever that may be. Really knowing who your ideal client is and how they think and how they operate is another key to being a strong business owner, but especially in the wedding world, with every bit of information at our fingertips now. One of the keys, I think, to my success as a business owner is that I've never stopped learning. I have a ravenous appetite for educating myself. I can't stop myself, and I believe that the moment I feel complacent with where I am in the market is the second I become obsolete. So I'm always looking to improve and better myself and better my staff, and to do that, I'm open to feedback from my clients. I go to a lot of conferences and workshops that really resonate with me. Webinars, much like this one, through blogs like Style Me Pretty that are interviewing floral designers and wedding planners and photographers and things. I'm always logging onto those to learn what they're talking about, what is most important to them about their daily lives and how they're operating their businesses. But also networking, going to workshops and conferences of varying size, investing in the ones that I think are going to resonate with me the most in my brand. So studying sort of the individuals that are attending and speaking and making sure that they're like-minded professionals, because that's what I'm really going to get the most out of. A couple of them that I've gone to that I find most helpful has been Engage by Rebecca Gernhauser and Catherine Arce. They have a fantastic perspective on the luxury wedding market. And they bring this information with a session of speakers over the course of a few days, and the true luxury experience at every corner of the session. You get to touch, feel, smell, hear with all of your senses. What a luxury experience is helps me to bring that back home to my clients and teach them ways that they can really make an experience for their guests that are traveling to New Orleans. I recently came back from an international workshop for stylists and photographers by Pearl and Godiva, which has been a phenomenal experience for me. I was the only American there, and it was my first time traveling to Europe, so that was an adventure, but you got to take risks. So one of the things that I learned there had a lot to do with photography. I'm a big believer in strengthening yourself through multiple disciplines, not just as a planner or designer or stylist or whatever it is that suits you best, but learning something that might not be what you intend to do for yourself, but helps you understand that side of the business as well. For example, at this workshop, we were allowed to split up and for a session, a breakout session, to go with the planners and talk to them about planning and design work, or the photographers could go over with the photographers, Eric McVeigh and Amy, his wife, who were there to speak. And I opted to stay and listen to the photographer side of things because I really wanted to hear about Eric and Amy's amazing experience, their transition over 5 years, and how he has gone from shooting digital to film. And I don't know the first thing about a camera. I know how to make things look pretty in 3D form and hope that the photographer can shoot it well, but I'm trying to refine, as a stylist, I'm always trying to refine the way that I am presenting things for the photographer, and also how to make their job easier on a wedding day or a shoot day. And the only way I feel like I can do that is to sit and listen to the questions that they ask and the things that they're learning. So trying to explore multi-disciplinary practices, I think, has been truly valuable to my experience. I've also gone to many floral workshops, and I do not intend to become a florist. I have found it extremely helpful in styled shoot situations when I can't find a florist who's available for a shoot that I have coming up, or I've had a florist back out because of the death in the family or something, to be able to have skills to pull something together at the last minute and still have a great result, because especially with style shoots, you have a lot of people that are contributing their time and resources, and this is for the purpose of getting images out there, getting their name on the internet, getting published on blogs so that they can have a link back to their website, improve SEO. There's a lot of fallout from something like a shoot. So to be able to have skills in multiple areas has been truly helpful for me. And the most valuable aspect of that, I think, is to really understand what these vendors go through on the day of, so I can understand how I can add into my workflow ways that help set them up for success, because at the end of the day, the client wins when everybody is doing their best work, and that is what is most important. So that's my approach to running my business, really. Always educating myself in multiple different professions in the field, and really getting my name out there through the path that I choose for myself, which is what has really worked for me, is just online blog publication. Some of the things that I'm doing now with my business, I'm trying to scale back the number of weddings I do. Every year it gets smaller and smaller, because I really want to focus on my clients in a more intimate, involved way. I want to really get to know who they are at the core of their being, as a couple, as individuals. I want the guests at their wedding to enter into the reception space and say, this is exactly the wedding I envisioned Susie and Johnny to have, because this is so them. What I don't want to happen is for a guest to walk in and say, this is a textbook Sapphire Events wedding. I see it all over her Instagram every single week. I want each experience to be true to who my clients are. So I'm always competing against myself to do better work every single client that comes in the door, and always challenging myself and my staff to think of ways that we can improve. I guess another struggle that I have as a business owner to that regard is opening myself up to feedback. The nature of this business is such that there are some people that you can never fully please, and that's life. That's in any field. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me with my overachieving personality type and my people-pleasing personality type to have to learn throughout these years, is that it's not always possible to please everyone. So one of the things that I've done, I've adopted, is the rule of the 1-minute apology that Colin Cowie described at one of the sessions that I heard him speak at. The power of the 1-minute apology is critical. Sometimes at the end of the day, there's things beyond our control. There's things that just didn't happen the way that we'd planned, and that's okay, but it doesn't always make it right. So occasionally I'll get a call from a client for what I call the post-mortem discussion after their wedding, when they just have some things to air out, and it's usually very small things that maybe they don't have full context of behind the scenes, what we did to try and do the best that we could. No matter what it is, it's always something that I find they're just looking for somebody to say, I'm sorry. And for whatever reason, I think in our society, or maybe it's the industry, we find it very difficult to say I'm sorry, like there's a really high cost to that. But I find it's really easy to listen to what the person has to say and hear them out and say, you know, I understand where you're coming from on this, and I'm sorry it happened that way. And that goes miles ahead to bridge the gap for whatever it is that they're feeling, which, like I said, is sometimes something completely beyond all of our control. But just to be able to say, or have that person hear, somebody listening, understanding them, and saying, I'm sorry that it was that way. What can I do to make it better for you? And that helps leaps and bounds to have people end up feeling complete at the end of this process. More often than not, these times are very, very rare, and like I said, few and far between, but it happens. And being the kind of person that always wants to see people happy and elated and singing your praises from the rooftops, that's a great feeling. And that's why I'm in this business, because there's nothing like the end of a wedding day, having somebody, a mother, a father, just a guest, come up and say, oh, you have done a fantastic job, and even give you a hug and say, thank you for making her day so special. I can see how happy she is. That's what I live for. I would never get that in the law. But I'm so happy doing this because of that reason. But then there are just sometimes when it doesn't happen that way, and you still have to move forward. And every wedding, every client is an opportunity to learn how to improve, how to do better, to take lessons from, and to move on and proceed and progress in your business and in your work to do better the next time. So so those are some things that I've been working on this year, and also serving as a mentor to my staff, my team of creative people, inspiring people to do better and to seek out the things that they really want and that really fires them up, and letting them feel the freedom to explore those avenues. So I do consulting with other vendors who are coming to me wanting to see how they can attract more of their ideal client. I mentor other wedding planners who are looking to break into the business. So I started a session this year called Sapphire Sessions, where I'm welcoming planners new and old, it's been mostly new planners, to come and sit and listen to how Sapphire Events operates from, soup to nuts. I share my contracts with them, my timeline. We go through every little detail of how we work our business. And again, people said, you're crazy. Why would you share that with your competition? And to me, I don't think it's that crazy, although I can see their point. But I believe a rising tide raises all ships. And I got into this business to help improve the New Orleans wedding industry. And what better way to improve it than to share the things that I've learned over 4 years with people that are coming into the business so new, and to help them serve brides better without having to learn the hard way like I did. Then everybody wins. So I don't see it as giving too much of myself to my competition. I'm an open book. I'm happy to share. So so in that way, I'm also trying to make my mark on the market, because I can't do all the weddings. I want to do the best weddings for me. And this is my way of trying to level the playing field in a way that brides are not necessarily making a decision based on a financial or monetary, who's $1,000 more or less, but who is the best for me? Which personality type and design aesthetic really resonates with me? That's where I'd love to see our industry get to, is much more collaborative, less cutthroat, less competitive is always good, but less cards close to the chest, more, hey, these are some ideas I was having. Let me bounce these off you. Tell me what you think. Let's collaborate a little bit more. So that's what I'm going after this year and next year. And so far I've had a great, response, and the year is not yet half done. So, but that's my presentation. That's what I have right now. And I look forward to your questions and seeing what you guys have for me. So.
That was absolutely phenomenal. I took so many pages of notes.
Oh, good.
So good. I don't even know where to begin. I'm just so inspired. I'm so moved. I just love everything that you're doing, and everything that you stand for, quite frankly, is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed and touched and inspired. Okay. All right. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do day to day? I know there's no typical days in event planning, to be honest, but what would you say your day was today, or even the people who work for you? What can you expect?
Sure. So today is my day off. It's a Monday. I have what I call Holy Mondays, since we work Saturdays. Sunday and Monday are our weekend. But on my Holy Monday, I was asked late last week to do a live segment on a local television show about an event we have coming up. So I had to pull together a tablescape, a linen, a floral, table, chairs, place settings, all that stuff. This was Friday at 1 o'clock for Monday at 10 a.m. So I pulled it all together, calling my friends who were great in the industry to help me in such short notice. And we had terrible weather. I woke up, did my hair, makeup, which I don't always do because I have small kids, and got out the door, dropped my daughter off to school, stopped by the office, packed my car, drove over to the studio. My event producer, Evie, brought flowers to the studio because she lived close to the forest, and we had tornado watches, and literally the sky was black. It looked like at 8 o'clock at night, and this was 9:30 in the morning. So the news show was taping or going live with their broadcast about the weather, and with all of this pulling together at the last minute, we were told, oh, the segment's been canceled, and so we had to go home, back to the office. So I made a productive day. I met a client who was in from out of town with her fiance. They were shopping for venues. She's a design client. Met her in the office at noon. I'm revamping my Pinterest page. So I was pinning to Pinterest and also answering emails at the same time. And my staff who are in the office, 2 event producers, Jack and Evie, their bios are on my website. They're fabulous people. We're bouncing questions and thoughts and sharing stories about the wedding we had 2 weeks ago, just back and forth in general. And then I left to come home and take care of my kids until my husband got home and this whole thing. So a day in the life of working from not home anymore, because I used to work from home until February when I got my office space, but it's always crazy. And the same thing for my staff. They used to work at home from the leisure of their sofa and their PJs, and now we have office, so they get to see human faces, which we're all very excited about. But we've worked very hard to have an office space downtown and be able to host clients there and vendor meetings and things. But every day is different. And you never know what to expect. So we make ourselves available in our office hours, and we just sort of roll with the punches.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I think that's what I love the most about our industry. I think we're fortunate. Some people could not thrive in that environment of it ever evolving and ever changing. But me personally, I would get so bored if it was the same thing, mundane thing every day. How do you, and I think this kind of transitions great into this, how do you maintain a work-life balance or lack thereof, since you have, many events happening on the weekends and the evenings, you've got kids?
That's a great question. I used to, when I was first starting out, again, the people pleaser in me wanted to be available at all hours and be everything to everybody, and I was miserable to myself in the meantime, and my poor husband. So I decided to enact office hours. Which sounds like I never work, because the office hours are from Tuesday to Thursday, 10 to 4, right? Which is not even a full 3-day of a work day. But in actuality, I let my clients know 10 to 4 on these 3 days, they can expect a reasonable response time from me if they communicate with me via email or if they call me. I prefer email, and they know this. But this is when I'm generally around my computer. Fridays are days that we're in production for Saturday events. And I can sometimes get to email on Friday, but for the most part, I reserve that for rehearsals for my weddings the next day, and the general things that we have going on to prepare for Saturday. And then Saturday's game day. That is a big day for us. And then Sunday and Monday, like I said, those are my holy weekend days. And I very rarely divert from that. So my staff is actually in the office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So much more reasonable than just 3 days a week. But to offset our client expectations that we are always available to them, having email available on the phone and phone's always in our hand, we establish this boundary at the very, very outset and let them know that we're very respectful of their time. And on their wedding day especially, we're not going to be fielding new client phone calls and meetings and things, because that's the day they're getting married. So they should also expect that of us. And because I'm dealing with destination clients, so people that are coming from New York and California and Texas to New Orleans, we also let them know at the very beginning of our relationship together that weekends are our event day for everybody in the industry. So if they'd like to come and meet with their florist or whomever, it's going to have to be between Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes Fridays will work, but don't expect it to be available because people are preparing for Saturday events. So setting that expectation early on and drawing that line, people are very respectful of that for the most part. And I also have a very solid contract that's in place that sets a boundary of so many meetings, in person or over the phone meetings. I think it's 6 or something if they're a full planning client. And I don't tell my clients this. I mean, I tell them, but I don't ever sit there and say, oh, we're on our 5th meeting, so you've only got 1 meeting and we've got 8 months left to plan. I don't count like that. I believe in under promise and over deliver. So I'm always giving them more than I say that we're agreeing to, but that protection is still in place. If I do have a client that's there that's abusing the system, I can always go back and say, hey, you signed a contract that says 6 meetings. We've already had 10. We've got this many months until the wedding. We've got to wrap things up. I'm going to do what it takes to get things done. But at the same time, I also need to protect myself and my interests and keep clients from overstepping those boundaries, because I do have a husband and children and, some minor bit of a social life I'd like to maintain for my sanity. So that's what I do.
Brilliant. And we're getting some great questions on the event. Well, we even have people tuning in from Ireland, believe it or not. So I'm gonna start with a happy ending question, which is, and this is from Sherry. She says, does your husband remember when you first told him about your idea that night, and what does he think now and that it happened and you're successful?
Oh my gosh. He does remember that night, but I think more because I tell the story so much that he's heard it about 1,000 times. His memory's not so great in the sleeping hours, so I don't think on his own he'd remember that. But he, just when I started this webinar a few minutes ago, he was telling me how proud he was of me. He said, "Who are you talking to?" I think he thought I was going to watch a webinar. I don't think he understood I was going to talk on one. And I explained it to him and who I was going to be talking to, and he was like, "Wow, oh, okay." And then I was coming up the stairs, and he said, "I'm so proud of you." So he gets it. He loves what I do, and he is so supportive. I could not do this without his support. I'm so grateful and so fortunate for his understanding, and he does daddy daycare on Saturdays, so he's with the girls while I'm off doing weddings until the wee hours of the morning. He's been very supportive, so I'm very lucky for him, and he loves what I'm doing, and sometimes he wishes he was doing it instead of practicing law, but that's another day.
I hear you. And we have another question, and I apologize if I slaughter your name. I think it's Branica, and she says, "Is there any criteria of clients you turn down and why?"
Oh, this is a great question. I am open to working with anybody. So it's not necessarily a budget or a financial benchmark that I'm looking to go after, although that is very helpful. Of course, I can be very creative when I have more resources available to me. But there are sometimes a personality mismatch, and I can tell that right away. When I am interviewing a client, I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. And if I just don't feel right, it's a Jiminy Cricket kind of notification. It's like somebody's in there saying it's just not jiving. And that's when I say, maybe this is better suited for somebody else. Or actually, I say more along the lines of it's me, it's not you. And let them know that there are other people that I think might be better suited for them. So I always turn them down the right path, but it's usually a gut instinct kind of thing.
Gotcha. And since you are looking to kind of control the number of weddings that you have in a year, how are you facilitating that? Is that kind of knowing your competition and being able to refer them that business, or just how does that work?
It's knowing my limits. So I'm very fortunate. I have a staff, and they're able to take on their own weddings as lead event producers, as well as myself. We have two busy seasons too. So gauging how busy each weekend might be is really what tells me how available we might be. It's not so much that, we can take so many only one wedding a day. That's not the case, because I have two very talented event producers that are very capable. But it really depends on the situation, the size of the events, what photography is very important to me, so that they're working with really great photographers, or maybe it's a venue that we really want to work at more. There's a lot of different circumstances and variables that go into that, but it's all a very judicious decision that we make. We sit and sort of analyze the whole set of circumstances.
Understood. So great segue into, on your website, and as you've mentioned, you have event producers. What are their roles, and how does it differ from yours as the principal planner and lead designer?
Sure. I am the sole salesperson. So I am taking in all of the inquiries. I'm interviewing the clients. I'm sending out the contracts. I'm making sure they get their deposits paid. And I do the thing that I really like to do in the planning process. I love design. I love the creative aspect. And so I design all of our events. I'm at all of those meetings with our floral designer and our rental company, and picking out the linens and all of those things. So that's my role. I'm also overseeing the entire project. My event producers are the main point of contact for all things logistical and tactical. So they're setting up hotel blocks, meetings for when they come into town, the squaring away transportation manifests, all of the back and forth communication, because they are really able, I'm able to assign an event producer to each of their own events, and I'm overseeing all of the company's events. So they are much better at responding faster to our clients. So they come to each of the meetings when the clients are in town. It's me and the event producer. So our clients get the benefit of having two people really on their event, with one being the main point of contact. And if ever there's a question, the event producer comes to me, we strategize, I tell them what I want to see for our company, and they go do it. And I also delegate responsibilities that way as well. So on event day, I show up if we have multiple events, I try and show up to all of them, which is a little bit crazy, so I'm trying to get away from that. But I allow my event producers to really be the lead and the face of the rehearsal, and they're drawing up the timelines. I'm reviewing them, but they're creating all of those things. And because they're communicating directly with the clients, they become the person that the clients are most comfortable with on event day. And I will show up and style the invitation suite and that sort of thing. But I like to let the leash out a little bit and let them run, because they're very good at what they do. So.
That's awesome. We got a question from Stephanie, and she says, what is the most memorable wedding or weddings that you've planned?
Oh, I get this question a lot, and it always stumps me until I get on a roll, and then I think just about all of them are memorable. I can remember weddings, like every single wedding that I've done, I can remember. It's crazy. We've had 300 or so, maybe 350 person Vietnamese wedding on Easter weekend in an art museum in New Orleans. And before the event started, we had the Vietnamese catering company we had been in communication with. And then at the end of the night, as we were breaking down, they could not speak English at all of a sudden, when we were asking them about, cleaning off the plates and things, and it became a big ordeal. I mean, when they decided it was time for them to leave, they wanted to leave. And so that was a challenge, because our rental company, who had loaned them the plates and the silverware and everything else, were expecting to get the silverware and plates back. And nobody wanted to claim duty to clean the plates. And we're in an art museum, so it's not like they have a huge dishwasher in the back for 300 plates. So that was interesting. I really find every wedding to be its own unique challenge. And again, if I get on a roll with this, I could go on all night into the crazy antics that we've had. But really, that one stands out at the moment, I think, because it's been on my mind with the weather being what it is. My own wedding, I will say, it was the rainiest day in all of creation, and the streets flooded, and I fully expected us not to have anybody show up at our reception, but they did. And that's, again, a story for another day, but I tell people, if it rains on your wedding day, brides will say, what happens if it rains on my wedding day? I say, I have enough rain on my wedding day to make all of my brides have great rain-free wedding days. And so far, that has been the case. So.
Good. That's awesome. That is so good. I know that prior to this call, you and I had talked about the fact that you receive a lot of inquiries for, potential people who want to work for you or intern with you, and you had kind of your own opinions on what works and what doesn't work and the different approaches that are taken. Can you kind of shed some light on that and what you look for in the people that you hire?
That's a great question. So everybody that I've hired, I wasn't looking for them at the time I hired them. And I think that's very important to know. I've never put out an ad for looking for or now hiring or what have you. These individuals that I have felt I could trust enough to bring into my team sent me an email, cold call, and I get these quite frequently. The best ones are always ones that have message in the body of the email that's tailored to me, meaning they've actually looked into my work or my portfolio, or they tell me how they found me by looking through Style Me Pretty and seeing a recent feature of mine or something. So having that personalized message in the email body is huge. because then I know they're not just copying and pasting to everybody else, even though that might be what you're doing. I used to do it too, so it's fine. But then also having a well-written cover letter is huge. In addition to having a good written body of the email, the cover letter is meant to explain and point out things about your work experience that can be applied to a position with Sapphire Events. And then, of course, a very good resume that's tailored to the field or the position that you're going for. Even if you have restaurant experience or something, some other work experience that you might think is not related, the resume itself as a whole should showcase all of your skills. And again, I'm looking for people that have a well-rounded background, multidisciplinary approach to things. But if it's tailored to, say, nursing, if you are sending me a resume that is tailored to becoming a nurse, that's not really something I'm going to be able to apply. So sending an email that has a great message in the body that's personalized, a well-drafted cover letter that showcases your abilities, and then your resume that is drafted for a position in the wedding field, that's huge. And again, your experience doesn't have to be specifically in weddings, but showing me what skill set you can bring to the table to really help improve Sapphire Events. Those are the ones that stand out to me most.
Understood. And what would you say, especially since, you have an amazing background in that you went to school for law and you've ended up in this career path. So what would you say to people who are just trying to get a start? They've all of a sudden woken up at 2 a.m. in the morning, they realize this is what they want to do for the rest of their life. Where should they even start?
Definitely look toward planners in your area. We are always looking for help, especially on the day of. I require everybody that before they start working for me to shadow me on a wedding day. I want them to see how sausage is made. And it's not always as pretty as Pinterest and the wedding planner movie that J-Lo is in. It's not glamorous most of the time. It's very happy at the end, but I want you to be able to get in there and get down and dirty and see if it really is something you want to do. So offer your local planners to shadow them. Go work for a florist for a season. Getting experience behind the scenes in some other discipline is going to be huge as an advantage to you when you are applying for jobs or starting your own business. So blanket the market. Look for anything and everything that you can to get experience in the field and to see behind the scenes. The more behind the scenes experience you have, the better. And don't be afraid to send out those cold call emails, because that's where I found all of my staff. You never know who is looking for you and your skill set.
Absolutely. Great point. And to make a shameless plug for SCPA, if you are a member of SCPA, we do have the Opportunities Program, guys. So that is literally businesses in your areas where we have chapters submitting volunteer opportunities. So day of event management opportunities where you guys can go out there and get this hands-on behind the scenes experience that you need. And as she's demonstrated, is so valuable to be, to know what you want to go into and not being kind of prejudgmental about the opportunities that are in that database, because again, you want to try your hand at different things to find out what you like and what you don't like, and whether or not to validate whether this is really something that you want to do. Because I will echo that there's a big misconception about the event industry, and point over here, point over there, and miraculously this event appears, and it's totally not that way. So you have to have a strong work ethic, and there's nothing like the real thing for sure. I could ask you a million questions because I'm just so excited. But I'm gonna end with one question so that we can kind of end on time. But I know that we have even just some of our members who are just starting their businesses, and you're just, again, such an inspiration. And I wanted you to kind of give any kind of last nuggets, thoughts, motivation for them. One of the questions is, when you were starting your business, what was the scariest aspect? And are there any tips you would suggest to people who are looking to maybe start their own businesses in wedding or event planning?
Sure. My story is unique to me. It's what worked for me. And for everybody else, what you have to do is going to be unique to you. So if that means you have to get a 9 to 5 that's giving you that paycheck so you can do events on the side every weekend and just slowly build your business, do what you have to do, what makes you comfortable, because that's going to be the first step to finding your path to doing this full time. Again, your expectations are going to be key here as to what it is you really want to get out of it. So thinking about it ahead of time, what is it is you're doing this for? What's your reason, your mission? What do you hope to gain at the end? I'm not doing this to get rich. It is a way to make a living for my family, but I, as a business owner, especially if you're planning to go out on your own to do this, the money comes in very slow and you have a lot of expenses at first. So these are things that I think not everybody tells you, or you're not really aware. I know I wasn't when I first got in, just how long it would take before you start feeling like, okay, I'm on a roll here. I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in my status financially. Those things to me are the scariest and the riskiest. Like I said before, if you take big risks, with great risk, there's great reward. And it might come down the road. So you have to think about what it is that you're willing to take on as that risk factor, what you're able to for your situation and your family, and strategize a plan to go after it. Set your goals, write them down, say them out loud, put them out in the universe. They'll come right back to you. What you want wants you. One of my favorite speakers, Simon T. Bailey, says that. Put it out there in the world and it'll come back to you. And tenfold maybe, but you have to put the work into it. You have to take risks, and you have to find your own path. What works for somebody next to you and what worked for me is going to be different than what works for you. So be open to that, but also keep your head down. Just keep working for it. It'll come.
Love, love, love you. This is awesome. This is so good. Honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I know everyone's going to echo it. The best for last for sure. This has been such a phenomenal webinar. I've just literally, if you saw my notes, it's embarrassing. It's going like up the page. Everywhere. But this has just been absolutely brilliant. Valerie, thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, for your impact in the industry in and of itself. So far and few between do you find people who are so willing to give information and to teach other people what they know and not be selfish about that. And I loved just kind of your thought process about that, you know, that we're all in this together and that we all rise together. Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I want to thank everybody also who tuned into this webinar and for the phenomenal questions that you guys have been posting on the event wall. Of course, if you're ever in New Orleans or you're not in New Orleans, you know exactly who to recommend business to for sure. And I wish all the best to you and your team and continued success and growth and to achieving your goals also as a business owner and that balance, you know, for your family, your husband, your kids, etc. Just such an inspiration. And thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, and I wish best wishes to everybody, and I'm available by email, so if there's any other questions anybody has, I'm an open book. I will welcome your feedback and your questions, and if you are in New Orleans, please let me know. I'd love to see your face. So yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. All right, SCPA, this webinar will thankfully be recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you weren't able to see the whole thing, or if you want to share it with other people who you know will benefit from it, you can grab it from the YouTube channel for SCPA and share it. If you are a member of SCPA, you can also get credit for watching this webinar and completing a corresponding quiz, which we'll have up for you guys in the next coming days. So be sure to check the video description for that quiz. Thank you for everybody who even is not a member of SCPA all the way from Ireland and around the world who tuned in today. We appreciate it and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Bye.